Good evening, everyone. This is the February meeting of the Parents Advisory Council. We're very excited tonight. We have an opportunity to present to our parent community, and of course, if you can't see it, you can see it taped on the live stream. We will be posting it. But tonight, we are going to talk about our North County innovation spaces in our 6 elementary schools and in our new middle schools. So the title of this presentation is North County Innovation Spaces, the 3 Ps of passion, purpose, and possibility. So we are excited about the prospect of working with our students to open up possible avenues for them to consider in the future, and also to help them to develop skills that we would realize that would be essential for the workplace of the future. So I think without any further ado, I'd like to introduce Deputy Superintendent Kathleen Skeels to bring us to our presentation and to provide us with our overview. Ms. Skeels.
Thank you, Mr. Kaur. And Mr. Simrelli, if you want to put up the slideshow for us, please, and we'll get right underway. We have a PAC presentation for you tonight. That was a little pun there. I don't know who caught it, but I liked it. And we have great information to share, and I'm very excited to be able to bring this team to you tonight. So Mr. Kaur already previewed for you the title of Passion, Purpose, and Possibility. You will learn how the innovation spaces at all levels, at our elementary and at our middle school, are helping students to find their passion, which is of course tied to their purpose, and certainly opening up all kinds of possibilities to them. All of the pictures that you see on this opening slide are pictures of our actual students in innovation spaces doing work. These are not things that we clip from the internet. These are our students this year doing this work in our innovation spaces.
Can I turn this down a little bit?
Could someone please mute? Thank you.
And then if we could have the next slide, please, Mr. Simrelli. So our innovation team, I'm leading off here, but really, as you can see, this is an incredible group of people. Paige Rossi is unable to be with us tonight, and she's very disappointed, but she is sharing some thoughts later in the presentation. And you can see we have Stacy and Amy, Jessica, Mary Beth, Mark, Brian, Caitlin, Katara, Chris, Michelle, Gary, and Renata all are on tonight with us. They all play different roles, but as you can see, we are working together as a team to do sequenced and logical programming K-8. So from our youngest students who are learning in the innovation spaces, if you're in kindergarten, you're going to innovation spaces, all the way up through our middle school and the different kinds of activities that we have. So I want to give a big thanks to this team, not just for tonight in the presentation, but the work that they've done. They all had to apply for these positions and they were selected. They all took, as I like to say, a leap of faith. We had a general outline and a general vision of what we hoped the spaces would be, but the magic that has been created by this team of outstanding teachers. They have really infused these spaces with joy for our students and really opened up possibilities in ways that I don't think we could have even imagined back when we were designing these spaces as part of our building project. Next slide, Mr. Simrelli, please. Now, if you've been on the PAC before, and most of you have, and in budget meetings, you know that we always talk about our 3 pillars in North Colony, and we really see that the innovation spaces are the living embodiment of these 3 pillars. First of all, tonight you will see academic excellence on display. The problems that our students are solving, the kinds of tasks that they're doing, the thinking that they have to do, we are certainly pushing them academically in ways that are joyful, that are experimental, that are creative, but are helping them to build their confidence. Equity, a big part of what we wanted to do was to make sure that the innovation spaces were open to all, that they weren't spaces that could only be used in the afternoon or after school or for certain clubs or for kids who could come into school early, but that they would be a part of the school day. because everything that we're doing in terms of reading and writing, mathematics and scientific thinking, all of that is coming into play in the innovation spaces. So they are certainly equitable because all of our students get to attend. And then you may not think about social emotional health as being a part of the 3 pillars as it relates to the innovation spaces, but I keep using the word joyful. If you were in our schools, you would see the buzz and the energy that is going on in these rooms where students are getting to create, where it is at our youngest grades purposeful play. It is a place where students can try. They don't have to worry about grades and they don't have to worry about pressure, but they're just learning, they're working with other students. It's a way for them to collaborate. And as we come back from the pandemic, have those social opportunities with their friends and with their classmates. And so really, as you watch tonight, I think if you keep these 3 pillars in mind, as all the teachers explain the amazing things that are going on, you'll hear how all of these are being realized in our innovation spaces. Next slide, please.
Okay, I thought it'd be good to go back a little bit in time and talk about how these spaces even came about, concept of them, design and purpose of them. I'm a very visual person. I need a graphic to explain stuff to you. You see in the middle, you see the SMS Shaker Middle School, and you see 2 arrows going out to the elementary and the high school. Our construction really was concentrating on the middle schools and those spaces in that school. And back in 2019, we thought about these spaces and we thought what we needed in them, I'm gonna go around pretty much clockwise. There should be certain skill applications. We want our kids to discover stuff, to use technology, collaboration, empower the students, creativity, and be designers. So what we did at that time, we took a few tours. I was in different spaces in different schools, some in Pennsylvania, some in Massachusetts. And what happened after those tours, we came out with a couple different things. Remember the movie, The Field of Dreams? If they build it, they will come. Oh, I discovered that wasn't something that would happen. Many of these schools had spaces that really had no purpose for them or reason for them or programs. So we also realized what we really needed is we needed stuff we pertain to things we're doing with our strong academic and exploratory programs we have now, tie them into that one. We want to make sure these spaces tie into our classroom curriculum integration. And as Kathy just mentioned, Mrs. Keels mentioned the 3 pillars, the academic, the equity, and social emotional were a big part of these rooms. We also noticed in the spaces we observed staffing was crucial. There had to be good staff in that room like we have right now. And then thinking about the high school level, the pathways we have in high school, and you probably can't see it along the top graphic says about careers. So a lot went into the thinking about these spaces right now in the middle school. And of course, the continuous evolution of these spaces. So what I'm going to talk about right now is the different skill applications. On my next slide, we have something called the Histy Standards, which is the International Standards for Technology and Education. Again, that's international. And if you look at them real there, we have empowered learners, global collaborators, creative communicators, computational thinkers, innovation design, knowledge constructors, and digital citizens. You're going to see throughout this presentation, you're going to hear these terms and understand more about these different standards. I'm not going to read through these really. We're going to share this presentation with you afterwards. But again, remember these different terms, the different Histy standards, and you'll start seeing those throughout the presentation. Now, I talked about the different skills. You're seeing them right here. And our main thing is the empowered learner. Again, I'll give you a chance to read those. Next on my loop was the current pathways we have now in our high school. Humanities, CTE, Art, CDOS, STEM, and World Languages. Now, what I want to do, these middle spaces are trying to get our kids prepared for these different pathways. We want to get that passion down in the early stage in 6th grade. So again, I'm talking about the skills we need. We're talking about our different pathways. And then we talked about the different careers. So we're not just going to speak about the different needs we have for our careers for our students.
Sorry, I had to unmute myself first.
Okay. Yep.
Okay, so after looking at the 3 pillars and the Histy standards and the reasoning behind the innovation labs, you can't help but think about one of the benefits of the innovation lab spaces, and that's the future job market. So students will need to learn certain skills so they can be competitive and marketable to obtain jobs. And the skills needed to be successful in today's workforce is quite different from those of the past. So with that in mind, the next decade is predicted to be a time of particularly intense change. The World Economic Forum predicts we will need to reskill more than 1 billion people by 2030 as jobs are transformed by the fourth industrial revolution. This will apply to current jobs as well as those yet to come into being. And the WEF predicts that 42% of the core skills required to perform existing jobs, Gary, can you go back? Thank you, will change in the next couple of years. Changes are occurring at an exponential rate. So the specific skills that are going to be needed for these positions will be active listening, complex problem solving, which breaks down to further sub-skills of problem definition, generation of alternatives for solving, evaluation of alternatives, and implementation of solutions. Now, I just want to break right here just for a second to state, I can't stress enough how important just this one particular bullet is, this particular skill is. I had an opportunity to meet with local business leaders, and every single one of them stated that it's not just about the degree and what you have on your resume. What they really look for is your ability to problem solve. This exact same thing. How do you break down the problem? How do you find the solutions and the alternatives to the solutions? And how do you collaborate with others to navigate through that process? That is so incredibly important. And they said it's not just about your resume. This is what they're looking for in the interview. Again, so coordination and collaboration with others, again, highly vital skill. The creativity and critical thinking, the judgment and decision-making, the negotiation skills and emotional intelligence, which is the capacity to be aware of, control, and express one's emotions and to handle interpersonal relationships, and judiciously and empathetically. All these are key to both personal and professional success. So all of these above skills, which is fabulous, are practiced in our innovation lab spaces. Thank you, Gary.
So if you take our pillars, you take our skills, you take our pathways, and what Renato just spoke about right now, this is how we ended up with these different spaces you see right now. Humanities Center, robotics and coding, simulation, clean technology, makerspace, health and wellness. Now, remember I talked about the evolution of our spaces? This is where the elementary innovations are crucial. The skills we're teaching those kids will make our middle school spaces evolve even more in that part. Okay, next, what happened, last summer, we met together as a group and we put together something called Axioms. And Davis, do you want to speak about this?
Yeah, so we went to tour the Center for Gravity in Troy, which is a true makerspace. Mr. Navratil has been a part of that, and we had a community partner, Erica Iannotti, who was there to help us. And she came back for a meeting and she made a suggestion that we had really created some guiding principles that consistently drove all of our spaces. And that is where we sat as a group and came up with these guiding principles or axioms. And we review these with our students, and these are things we live by in our labs. And it's clear, if you were to go in, you would see this is true. And one of the things that I always take on when I go in those rooms, kids don't have time for me. They're busy and they don't even notice that I show up, which is great because this is what they're involved, because in that space, all of our students, and in the space, all our teachers. Mistakes will happen. In fact, they are supported, expected, and respected. And I'm reading these because they're important. Innovation spaces are the safe spaces for students to work collaboratively and practice helpful lifelong skills such as creativity, self-compassion, expression of authenticity, connection, vulnerability, and courage. And I would say we revisit these during our meetings. And I think, moving forward, we probably want to bring in our elementary folks to discuss this as well, because I realize they weren't part of that original creation, but I'm imagining they live by these as well. But these guiding principles are essential. I really think the first one is huge, but they're all important.
Thanks, Davis. Okay, we again rehash what we have. We talked about the pillars, talked about our pathways, our skills. and our skills we need for workplace. The one thing I left out so far has been our staff, which has been, like Kathy said, the key to these spaces right now. So we're going to start in right here now with the elementary labs.
Well, first, Paige Rossi is the coordinator for the elementary spaces, and she was unable to be here this evening. So she did record a little video presentation, so just so that she could introduce herself and introduce the concept of the elementary labs. Can we play that now?
Yep.
Hi, my name is Paige Rossi, and I am the Elementary Innovation Lab Coordinator. The best parts of my job are the joy and the pride our students demonstrate to us in the lab. Seeing what they come up with and listening to them share their thinking and perspectives with their peers is incredibly fulfilling. At the elementary level, we are working to take innovation beyond just the class being taught to a school-wide culture built through collaboration. The Elementary Innovation Labs focus on engaging all students of all grades and ability levels. We develop our challenges around the Histy Standards and the 6 different habits of mind, which include perseverance, collaboration, curiosity, creativity, problem solving, and critical thinking. In the elementary labs, we also spend time teaching students how to use the engineering by design process. The engineering design process is a series of steps that engineers follow to find a solution to a problem. These steps include asking themselves, what is the problem and how can I solve it? They spend time individually generating ideas and then planning with their teammates. Using the criteria and constraints, they begin to create, test, improve, and present their prototype. Our innovation labs create spaces where students feel accomplished, feel enthusiasm, feel self-confident, and joy.
Thank you for sharing that. Perfect, Gary. Kindergarten. At the beginning of the year in Kindergarten Innovation Lab, we focused on exploring materials individually and working toward collaborating with a partner, and we're moving into small group work. At this level, the teacher reads a storybook with a STEM or character development theme, and the challengers are connected to the concepts from the books. An example of one kindergarten activity is a Be a Maker activity, in which in the book, the characters built a playground at the end of the book. So we had the students the first day build a playground with their materials and then draw a picture to show what they had built. You can see little pictures on there. And then the next day they came to class and we flipped it around and had them draw first so that they were practicing and learning how to plan. And then they built what they drew. They used familiar materials that they had experimented with earlier. They used familiar materials both times they came. And it was challenging for them to build what they had drawn. This helped teach them the planning step of the engineering design process. That's just one example. Next slide. In first grade, like kindergarten, many first grade challenges start with literature and move into an engineering activity. First graders are learning to work in teams. Specially designed team challenges, which focus on the habits of mind, are dispersed throughout the year. Halfway through the first grade year, challenges have begun to stretch over more than one class period. An example of a first grade activity is the Hopscotch coding activity. During this activity, students followed code symbols to play a hopscotch game. And then the next class, they used the same code symbols to code the Bebot to sequence events from a story. And they love, love, love using the Bebots. They're cute, they light up. Next slide. In second grade, most of the challenges are still tied to a piece of literature. Students work in teams to solve problems. In addition to learning to use a variety of materials, second graders are being introduced to more advanced technology. For instance, in one of the challenges, students learned to use the stop motion animation app on the iPad, tying into what they learn in science about solids and liquids. They used a storyboard to plan the sequence of steps in the process of a melting snowman. They then created their Play-Doh snowman and used the stop motion app to photograph each frame of the storyboard showing their snowman melting. And I think, Gary, we have it linked on there. If you can click on the link on the melting snowman, it's like 5 seconds, but it's super cute.
This one right here.
Yes.
Good.
So that's one example. Some of them were really funny, or they were melting their snowman and it would just squish. So, but they learned to use the technology along with it. So it was a really fun activity. Yep. Next slide. Third grade. Third graders delve deeper into learning the steps of the engineering design process. All of the third grade challenges focus on planning and working as a team. In the Kids Arcade Challenge, students individually planned ideas for an arcade game. During team planning, they were able to incorporate ideas from each team member to create their own cardboard arcade style game, where the teams created games. They incorporated components and ideas from all of their friends. You can see them working with the cardboard there. They built their games. At third grade, students are introduced to more advanced technology. For example, in the Balloons Over Broadway Challenge, after creating their own balloon, modeled after the ones in the Macy's parade, students used a green screen app to record video of their balloon moving in front of the green screen and use the app to make it look like their balloon was actually in the parade. So they had an absolute blast doing that too. And there's a couple of the balloons in the picture, and you can see the kids using the green screen. And Gary, there's one on there on the green screen link there. Just, again, it's like 6 seconds. They were supposed to make it look like it was in the Macy's parade, but you can see sometimes they got creative, and that balloon was under the stage, which is fine. They got to use the creativity there. Next slide, and Amy Parks is gonna take over here.
And before Amy starts, if I can just say thank you, Stacy, that was great. I think one of the things that's so amazing to look at is when you see on that last slide, you saw the third grade student actually using the iPad to film his classmate who had the balloon in front of the green screen. And in the second grade where they did the animation, again, it was the students taking the individual pictures and using the technology to show how the snowman would melt. I think perhaps in previous iterations, we might have had projects like this, but it would have been a lot of the adults using the technology, maybe showing it to the kids, but not having the kids be this independent. And this is only our first year and up through third grade. So you'll see the development of skills as you watch fourth, fifth, and sixth move up. But the amount of time kids are actually spending doing the work and doing the learning as opposed to being passive is amazing in these spaces. So thank you. And Amy, please feel free to go ahead.
All right, thank you. So fourth graders have also spent a good portion of their year learning engineering design process. In the future, since this is the first year, we had to kind of make sure we cover that with everybody. But in the future, this background knowledge will be in place, so we'll be able to offer students more choice of how they demonstrate their ability to apply the process, as well as develop the concepts of repeated iterations and presenting a final product. Fourth graders have also, they take it up a level and use more challenging technology as well. Just recently, they learned to collaborate within the WeVideo platform, and they created a group book trailer to tease a book that they had read in their classroom. And then, so they've also had access to the B-bots, which are intended for a younger audience, younger children, but being that, again, it's our first year, even the fourth graders had a blast with them. And they created mazes and then had to code the B-bots to go through the maze. So the skills progress as the levels go up. I think the next slide, we're going to jump to Mary Beth to talk about STEAM in fifth grade.
Thanks, Amy. Hi, I'm Mary Beth Aldis, and I am the art teacher at Southgate, and I'm thrilled to be part of this innovation team. I jumped in kind of late in the game, and I think I threw a little wrench into things because I got people thinking a little bit more away from the idea of STEM and more towards the idea of STEAM. And that's the direction that we're taking fifth grade in. So I just want to give you a little background on the difference between STEM and STEAM, and how we are working our whole brains when we talk about using STEAM. So if you look at the infographic on the right-hand side of your screen, you'll see that it's an infographic about the brain, and it breaks down the left side of the brain versus the right side of the brain. And most of us understand this. The left side of the brain, you know, you're very mathematical and logical, you're an analytical thinker. And then the right side of the brain, your strengths are spatial abilities, facial recognition, visual imagery, emotion, and creativity. What we want to try to do is allow students to use their whole brain in the innovation lab. Sometimes though, if we do that at a very, very young age, the young students, you know, the sky's the limit for them, and they get very hung up on the creativity part. And so we're really focusing on that STEAM component in fifth grade, and kind of honing those skills in there. So just a background on STEAM, in about 2010, Rhode Island School of Design came up with the educational model STEAM that they felt would better prepare future generations to compete in the 21st century innovation economy. And we heard Renata talking about that earlier. So opening the door to the arts aids in the process of turning critical thinking into critical making. And that's really what we're asking all of our students to do in all the innovation spaces. So if you think about innovation, you can't make an eye-popping sculpture or a jaw-dropping piece of architecture without engineering and mathematics. But you also can't make those things without a creative lens. Same as cars. Cars are not only judged by the technology and the engineering features they possess, but also by the design and aesthetic qualities. I buy a car because of the color or the shape, but maybe someone else buys it because, you know, it's a hybrid car or whatever. So we want to think of the workings and the package as a whole piece. And just so that you're aware, some famous whole brain thinkers and innovators, STEAM innovators, would be categorized like former Apple CEO Steve Jobs. He was considered a whole brain thinker. Yahoo founder Marissa Mayer, Albert Einstein, and the Samsung head of design, Dong-Hu Chang. They are all considered whole brain educators or whole brain innovators. So Gary, if you could move to the next slide, we'll talk about how fifth grade is moving a little bit from the STEM approach to the STEAM approach. So again, the art teachers in our art department in North Colony were super excited to take on this challenge. I will say it's a challenge because innovation in and of itself, like the artistic and the design part, is in our wheelhouse. But the science, technology, and math maybe are not in our wheelhouse. So it's been great this year myself to work with Paige and Amy and Stacy, because I feel like when we get together, we're really creating deep challenges for children because we all look at it in a different way. And so that's been wonderful. as our innovation team, and then to then bring that to our art department and have our art teachers working with 5th graders has been wonderful. So 5th grade started the year creating an environment for failure. What? You want to teach the kids how to fail? Yes, we actually did. So the past couple of years, the students have been asked to stay away from each other. They haven't had a lot of interaction. And we really wanted to bring that community aspect into the innovation lab with 5th grade. So we did do a few challenges that focused on what happens if you fail or what happens if you make a mistake, just to try to build community within the classroom and realize they could lean on each other. And so that has been really helpful in allowing students to take risks. We worked a lot on verbal communication with each other and presenting and looking at details and all those skills that we felt were necessary to take on some bigger challenges. And then we decided it was time to move into some bigger challenges. So one of our big challenges that we worked on was forced perspective photography. And a lot of people would look at that and say, wow, well, why is that in the innovation lab? Why isn't that in the art classroom? It's photography. And the reason why it's more of an innovation piece is because we're working with the students on team building, depth and perspective, design thinking and creativity, allowing the students to each take a leadership role as they directed their teammates in different photography aspects, and then presentation skills. Furthermore, we were really touching a lot on the North Colony instructional technology goals and allowing the students to use the iPads, take their photos, learning how to move the photos from the iPad to their Chromebook, share them in Google Drive, create a presentation, talk about, a strong presentation, that it doesn't have to be very jazzy, that you're just trying to communicate a message, and sometimes simple is better. And so there was so much involved in that challenge, and the students really enjoyed it. One thing, and Gary, you don't have to click on this, but in 5th grade, all of these bold and underlined challenges, when this presentation is documented somewhere, you can go in and click on each one and see the challenge, see the students in progress work, and then see the final outcome as well. Our 5th graders just finished engineering Snowmen. This has been a unique challenge for us. So our students went through a large process thinking about 3-dimensional geometry. They started by creating 3-dimensional forms using straws and pipe cleaners, and you can see some images there. And then we talked about what happens when you take that 3-dimensional form and you unfold it. You create what's called a net. This ties in perfectly with 5th grade geometry unit and math. And so students were taught what a net is. And then they used Polypad, which is an online program. And I have to thank Mark Karcher, who you'll hear from later, who taught me all about this. And the students were able to learn how to create nets and then fold them into solids in Polypad. From there, we moved into new software that the district had purchased called FabMaker. And the students fabricated 3 nets that would then be printed on our silhouette machines and folded into solids to create snowmen. There was a lot involved with this as well in terms of saving and putting it into Google Drive and into a shared folder. I have to say that our instructional technology aides in our buildings have been a remarkable help with that, pushing in and an extra pair of hands, and that's been wonderful. Coming up, our students will be working on some circuitry challenges and some stop motion animation, and we're going to finish the year, and they can't wait for this, with some virtual reality. So that's what's going on in 5th grade. And I think Amy's next, right?
Yes. So The social emotional piece and social emotional development of our students is critical to their overall development as individuals and as global citizens as they get older, especially after their school experiences the past 2.5 years. So we really wanted to make sure we focus on that. In developing these skills in our students will help them to engage in meaningful collaboration and help them interact with others in a positive way. When we promote SEL in the classroom, our students will begin to consider others' perspectives, recognize strengths, demonstrate empathy and compassion, develop communication and organizational skills, and understand and express gratitude. STEAM learning and the challenges that we design in our labs offer collaborative experiences with real-world connections. This is the perfect opportunity to embed strategies for social emotional learning. As educators, we can identify the SEL components and raise awareness within our students, demonstrating for them the connections to what they are learning and how this is also developing a sense of responsibility, decision-making, and relationship skills. Next slide, Gary. And what are the elementary teachers and students saying about their time in the innovation labs? I'm not going to read everything here. There's a lot here. We sent out a form and asked for feedback on how things were going. And you can see from this feedback that we received that the classroom teachers and the students, that the time they're spending in the labs have had a positive impact and are bringing joy to the students' time in schools. My favorite of the students was like, this is just like what Bob the Builder says. Can we fix it? Yes, we can. And they'll look at you and they're like, did I really just build this? And they're learning that they can do a lot on their own. And the teachers they've loved to see. What's great about the classroom teachers coming to the lab and spending the time in there with their class is that they begin to see that sometimes it's the students who struggle academically that really shine in some of these hands-on challenges that they're given in the lab. And it really opens up the teacher's eyes to seeing the potential in all the students in what they can do. And that's the best part. When a teacher says, wow, it was really great to see that student shine for once. Like, they struggle in the classroom, but they really shine in here. So we love seeing that. Next slide. And these are the final thoughts. The main thoughts regarding the elementary labs we want to leave you with is that through the elementary labs, we're able to provide K-5 students enrichment opportunities, which were just not available in previous years. We're also making a conscious effort at the elementary level to prepare the students for the work they will do in the middle school labs. Some of the examples are SEL activities will prepare them for the Health and Wellness Center. Our work with the engineering design process will prepare students for the makerspace. Using FabMaker and PolyPad will help them when they get to the simulation center. Having students learn and practice their public speaking skills using WeVideo.
I gotta get through it, so.
And stop motion.
But I took an hour for myself and
will help.
like
with the skills
Bob,
they will use.
could you mute, please?
All
right, man.
Learning digital fabrication on the Silhouette machines at the elementary level will prepare students for the more advanced fabrication skills they will learn in the Clean Tech Lab. And finally, introducing students to the basics of coding and giving them experience with the robots that we have at the elementary level will help prepare them when they get to the middle school robotics lab. And that is, I believe, the end of the elementary portion.
Yes, it is. Davis, do you want to speak to this slide at all about scheduling or?
Yeah, sure. I just want to thank Amy, Stacy, Mary Beth for your good work and seeing our kids. And it's exciting to see, I think, the additional challenges they're going to bring to each other and to us. And we're starting on some building blocks. I think our innovation teachers will be excited to see that. It's really just mind-blowing to think about. So I did want to mention, it's kind of to Amy's point that she mentioned that the different students can shine in these spaces. And that was the mindset we went in with when we looked at intentionality of scheduling. And we had looked at kind of the options for the middle level. And do we spread it out across different grades? Or do we really be intentional and make it what we did? Sixth grade, every day has an innovation period built into the schedule. And I'm really grateful that we've done that, because I think it's allowed that group to flourish. But we also have some gap days every 6 weeks for our 7th and 8th graders to be able to get some hands-on activities in mini lessons. But I'm not going to go on here. I really want to get to our teachers and all of the wonderful work. They've been so passionate and open-minded in moving forward and making adjustments. So let's hear from them. So this is Mr. Brian Ashline with Coding and Robotics.
Can you hear me now?
We can, yes.
Oh, whew. Whew. Hi, everybody. I'm Brian Ashline. I'm the Coding and Robotics Innovation Lab instructor. I'm looking forward to seeing these elementary school kids coming up here. It's really exciting stuff. I think that those robots are going to do great things for us as they come up. Ms. Skeels already mentioned it earlier today, but like while we were writing curriculum this summer, this phrase kept coming up that really stuck with me: purposeful play. And I've really kind of like taken that to the heart of my curriculum that I've developed, as well as problem-solving skills, which we've also touched upon this evening. The goal for each day in the Coding and Robotics Lab is to introduce a new topic, work with students to utilize that knowledge, and then allow them the time to experiment and play with the educational materials that we have in the classroom. In my class, we don't only focus on coding fundamentals, we also focus on teaching students how to learn through experimenting, how to work in groups, and how to solve problems both individually and within those same groups. I have two main educational platforms that I use in my room. The first to talk about tonight is Splats, which you can kind of see more on like the left-hand side of your screen. Splats are 8x8 tiles. They're actually like these giant buttons. They're programmable. They have lights, sound, and again, they're a button. We can connect up to 6 of them to a computer at a time. Students use them to code games and activities. And some of the activities are things like red light, green light, which you see a little GIF running in the top left corner. Race in place, where students take 2 splats on the ground and they program them to count how many steps or like runs they can take within 10 seconds. We also play things like Whack-a-Splat, which is based on Whack-a-Mole. And we also do like individual games within Game Creator. And it's actually funny, Stacy earlier mentioned the Hopscotch activity, I think in kindergarten. And actually we just had students last week design an interactive Splat Hopscotch activity for their Game Creator. So it's good to see that like back and forth there. Splats not only teach coding, they also teach teamwork, social and emotional health, and they really help to get kids involved. Like kids love playing on these things. So that's really great. The other thing that we have going on in my lab is Ozobots, which you see a lot more on like the right-hand side of the screen here. Ozobots are small robots with a variety of sensors built into them. There's 2 main ways to code Ozobots. The first way is with markers, and the second way is with Ozoblockly. We start introducing students with marker coding because they love the activities, and also it introduces some basic concepts such as input, process, and output. Students will program the bot to follow lines on the paper and use color sensors to code the robots to perform special actions. Once we've done that for a few days, we move into Ozoblockly, and we spend a fair amount of time in there. Within Ozobots, it's similar to Scratch if you're familiar. It's a block-based code. We talk about more in-depth coding and robotics processes, things like sequence, loops, and conditional statements. Students will work with the robots to do a variety of things. Some of them include making a dance, which actually there was a video I think that ran at the beginning here in the bottom middle, where 3 of my students had choreographed a dance between their Ozobots. Yeah, thank you so much. And if you heard they're super cute. They're like, Mr. Ashline, look at this. They were actually in my homeroom. They were doing that before school even began. They also can program the robots to follow one another, avoid people like hands or objects as they drive around. And they're a lot of fun. So in conclusion, I'm really proud of both my students and the program, especially for the first year. I think that we're coming a long ways really quickly, and looking at other programs, I think that everybody can say that. Many of my students have cited that this is one of their favorite classes that they've done. And as we mentioned earlier with the skills that are coming up, there are so many opportunities for programmers. I used to teach high school. I have lots of students who have gone into programming and who are doing amazing these days. By allowing our students to recognize their interest in these topics at such a young age, it may very well set them up for a successful career in the field and in the future. So I'm very happy to be teaching these great students and working with this terrific faculty. And I love teaching them about coding and robotics. So thank you very much for your time.
Next up is Miss Chirico talking about Humanities, the lab that she runs.
Hi, everyone. I'm Caitlin Chirico. I teach in the Humanities Innovation Lab. So our lab is a little bit less of the technology base. There is technology threaded throughout it, but it also is more about kind of looking internally and kind of connecting with some of the other things that have been said previously about those social emotional skills, as well as thinking about some of the Histy standards of being knowledge constructors, global collaborators, and creative communicators, really tapping into students' emotional intelligence and especially active listening. It was nice to see that earlier in one of the other slides, because that's something that we spend a lot of time talking about, how to be an active listener. The theme of this year, and I feel that will be continue into next year, is that everyone has a story to tell. Given everything that we've been through in the past couple of years, I thought this really kind of went nicely as our theme, to think about how we all have been individually impacted by not just the pandemic, but just things in our lives, and also how different things that we are impacted by can build empathy within students, within each other, within people around the world. And another part of that theme of everyone has a story to tell, I like to unpack with the students, is that our goal is to find a common thread in us all, and to kind of unpack the things that are within us that makes us similar, that make us different. So we spend a lot of time in our classroom thinking about not only what is our story, but how can we express that story or that moment in our life that we would like to share with others. So we do several things there in that to kind of build students' confidence in that area, because a lot of students come in and they feel that, well, I'm only 12, 13 years old. I don't really have much that has happened to me so far in life, but they have so much that they want to share. They end up finding out. So through different kinds of little activities that we do, such as Socratic Seminar, which is one of the most important, and which I thought a lot of students to begin with would be really hesitant. Socratic Seminar is basically a discussion where students lead the discussion. And the way I have brought this to the table for students is every Monday, I show them a picture from the New York Times. And the New York Times has this feature on their website called what's going on in this picture. And basically it's a picture taken that a photographer has taken, and it was in an article at some point in the New York Times, but there's no caption with it. So students have to tap into basically their inferencing skills. The ELA teacher in me likes to, really get them thinking about that and seeing how this inferencing happens outside of the ELA classroom as well. So they really take some time, analyze the picture independently, and then we go into a seminar where they bring their thoughts. They basically, while they're thinking about what's going on in the picture, they're looking at the details. They're taking in their background knowledge of what they know about things in the world, what they know about people, colors, cultures, etc. There's just so many things because every week there's a new picture and there's no caption with it. So they have to really dive into what tiny details would support what I'm thinking. So we talk about that a lot. And I like to tap into that first axiom with them. That's one of the first things I talk to them about when they come into my lab, is that my lab, I really wanted them to tap into the first axiom, that is everyone is a student in this room, but everyone also is a teacher in this room. And the Socratic Seminar gives students the opportunity to be the teacher, because I do not take part in the discussion. I actually step back and an observer of the discussion, and the students run the show. So if you kind of look in the right corner there, the picture with you can kind of see we go into a set circle or oval, and they bring their papers where they've written down their ideas and how they've analyzed the picture. And then I basically step away, and they have to really tap into their courage, which also goes into one of our other axioms, and also knowing that this is a brave, safe space and to be open to each other's ideas. So the Socratic Seminar really hits on all of the axioms that we try to incorporate in the middle school in these innovation labs, and they have a discussion. And at first it's a little awkward that students are hesitant to want to share, but that's where they've been blowing me away. Every single group that has come through, I think because they're more comfortable with each other, because they've moved through the other labs together and now they're in their fourth lab, they're ready to take off and have a conversation, and they want to talk and they want to share out their ideas. So that really builds their confidence and also creates the connection that, wow, you thought that just like me. I have some kind of sentence starters that I discuss with them in the beginning of class, just talking points goes back to that concept of being an active listener, really listening to each other, and also thinking about how we need to have those strong communication skills when we are agreeing or disagreeing with each other, because not everyone agrees that the picture is really this that's going on. So that's one of the first things I really built into the lab, because I want students to understand that the expectation is that we really want to develop our communication skills with one another and with the world around us. A couple other things that we've done, and I definitely have taken this program this year and evolved it every single rotation through. We've done lots of different activities, things that have tapped in with identity units that sixth grade also does in their ELA classes. Students think about, who are they on the inside versus who are they that they show on the outside. We've looked at the small moments of our lives, and students have created video projects, which also I've heard that in the elementary building you're also having them do. So it's like they're going to come in to the sixth grade with all of that knowledge of how to use video. So it's just great to see that, like, some of the things that I'm teaching the students now, they'll probably already know by the time they get to sixth grade in a few years. So students have different opportunities to express the way that they're thinking about things. We actually just had a group project where students worked together to create a public service announcement, where they picked a topic that they wanted to share with the world something they're passionate about. And they created a 30 to 60 second video where they express with their, sorry, one second here. They express their passion about, you know, whether it was gun control, or they had one about the dangers of smoking, the dangers of alcohol. We had lots about the importance of adopting pets versus going to breeders. They came up with all different ideas, and they worked with a group, collaborated with each other to create this public service announcement, and then also had to kind of support that with going and doing some research on their own, and then being able to broadcast that message to in a short, you know, 30 to 60 second time gap. Some other things that we have done, and what I do want to tap into also is what Mr. Chamberlain was talking about, is the 7th and 8th grade gap days, which I myself have been feeling that everyone really has. It's been such a great opportunity to get to be able to work with 7th and 8th grade students, even though it is just a few days. It's been nice to see what the students can do and are capable of doing in such a short period of time, but at a little bit of an upper scale level, being a little bit older. So that also has given me the opportunity to collaborate with core teachers such as ELA teachers and social studies teachers. And we've been able to basically take their curriculum at the moment and design something in the lab where students are creating some sort of video on WeVideo, or something that can express what they're learning, but in a different format. I worked with Martha Kerr, 8th grade social studies teacher, just recently. And you know, she said, normally I would just have the students write an essay for this, but now what we're going to do, you know, what she and I created was for the students to express that same information, but now it was in a video platform. And she still received the same amount of information that she would have gotten from the essay, but the kids were really excited about it because now they were working with partners in a small group. They're able to record their voices and then showcase what they were learning through images and music, and thinking about tone and mood and how they really wanted this to present to their audience. Obviously not right now, but at some point when this is posted, you'll see the links down here. The grade 8 Angel Island Poetry Project, was a collaboration that I worked with a social studies teacher with. And then 2 of the ones above it, How I Changed Over the Pandemic and Helping the Environment, those are two of the documentaries that were created by 6th graders that they could choose any topic they wanted. And it was part of the whole importance of storytelling. And those were 2 topics of a student who felt that he was impacted by the pandemic in a specific way. And then another student who her focus was really just about her passion of the environment. And what's been great about all of this, and if you want to go to the next slide, actually, I'll go to, you don't have to do that, Gary, actually, yeah. But what's been great about all this, you'll see in the slide after this, is just that how parents have really liked being able to be part of this process, especially when the students are creating the documentary, that they're going home. Part of the documentary is to maybe interview someone at home, building that kind of community within their own homes, within their small groups of people outside of the school, and just bringing it back to the purpose behind it and wanting to share someone else's story or share their own. I know I had him skip ahead, but just kind of thinking about what's next in the Humanities Lab. Again, like I've been kind of evolving this every rotation, but my most important pieces are really developing the communication skills and the empathy skills, and how that really drives our emotional intelligence in that piece, active listening piece. So what's next is, if you want to just go back, Gary, just one second, I'm sorry. There's I've partnered kind of with, reached out to this Six in Schools, they call it, which is the creator of the 6-word memoir. And we're actually, when the students get back in March after the February break, we're going to be having a instructor from the 6 in Schools, where we're going to have them be zooming in and discussing with us how students can create a memoir in 6 words, which is something they've done definitely in their ELA classes. But this is also going to give them the opportunity to create an actual book that we send away for, and then this company actually creates an actual book for them. So they'll be officially published into the book. And it's, taking that concept of what is my story, but now let's break it down to 6 words. What is the 6 most important words that I have to say? Another thing that that students should learn about today for their next independent project is the daily dedication, where that taps into also telling someone else's story. They're thinking of people in their lives that are inspiring them. And whether that is a character from a movie or a character from a game, or maybe it's their grandparent, someone alive, someone who has passed away, someone they've never met, maybe it's an athlete or somebody famous, but their challenge is to create a 30 to 60 second kind of dedication to that person. And thanks, Mark. He's definitely gave me this idea that he shared with me, but we're going to create this dedication, and we are going to start every class period. Students are going to sign up tomorrow to pick a day to then showcase this and dedicate that class period to this person. And then lastly, podcasting is definitely on something that I can't wait to begin with the kids. We're going to start analyzing and also thinking about topics that we want to bring into a podcast. We've been doing a lot with WeVideo all year, but now I would like to try to look at, how can podcasting be a voice, quote unquote, for us as well, to share our stories and also tap in and continue with that community and sharing our communication skills. So thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Cherico, for all the explanation and clarity about how you're empowering learners. That is a key piece to what we're all doing here. Next up is Mr. Navratil talking about our Clean Tech Lab.
Hi there, everyone. My name is Chris Navratil. I am the Clean Technology Innovation Lab coordinator. This has been an incredibly exciting school year. We've had the opportunity to take a blank space and create a clean technology lab essentially from scratch, which is kind of every teacher's dream, especially a technology teacher. So it's been just an absolute wonderful experience so far. I'd like to kind of just start off with describing what exactly is clean technology. So it's pretty much in the name. It's just technology that's revolved around being on the cleaner side. I usually give the example of utilizing equipment more along the lines of 3D printers versus, let's say, using like a wood lathe. You have like this machine with a gigantic piece of wood on it, and you bring a chisel up to it while it's turning, and all these chips are flying off, and it just kind of creates a gigantic mess. So that is technology, but we're focusing more on the cleaner side of things in the lab. So at the moment, if you look in the top right, we kind of have a list of what I like to call the big hitters in the clean lab. We definitely have a full set of 3D printers that are available for student use. We have 2 vinyl cutters actually in the lab. One of them is more of a hobbyist kind of version, and the other is a full grade professional vinyl cutter that's capable of doing much larger jobs. We have a couple of laser cutters. We have a heat press that's been used a whole lot this year. And with a couple of these pieces of equipment, doing graphic design in my lab has become very important. It's kind of the gateway into utilizing the equipment in the appropriate fashion. So we've been focusing on graphic design a lot. We have a brand new, beautiful CNC machine that's in the lab. We also have a vacuum former. I didn't have it on the list, but we have a gigantic, beautiful new printer plotter that's capable of printing 3 foot wide by like 25 yards for doing huge posters. And the list honestly goes on. We have more things too, but like I said, these are kind of some of the bigger things. So If you look at some of the pictures, I just posted a couple of examples of things that we've been doing in the lab since the beginning of the year. In the bottom left was actually closer to the start of the school year, right when the lab was getting up and running. We had this idea where the school store was in need of a poster. So I did a design challenge for all the students, and this was actually the winner. So this student utilized Adobe Spark. It's a graphic design software that all the students have access to, and was able to design this entire thing from scratch. And we printed it out on the plotter and was able to showcase that at the school store. So that was really exciting. And I have this idea, and I love the idea of the students taking almost commissioned work from either, like, if the school is in need of something or a club is in need of something, or any type of extracurricular, and being able to utilize the lab to complete jobs for others. So that was kind of a great example of that. Over to the right, we have a picture of the 3D printed keychains. This has been a really big project for us since the beginning of the school year. So basically, I instruct them on a rather complicated 3D modeling software that they all have access to called Onshape. And through that 3D modeling software, they're able to do a tremendous amount of things. But one of the things we do focus on is a customized keychain. I give them constraints on the size, because every single student has their own 3D printed keychain. And on average, each one of those takes about 45 minutes to 3D print each. So it is a time-intensive project. But after the size constraint, they are able to utilize the front of it kind of like a blank canvas. And they're able to put in text, pictures, all kinds of stuff. And one of the other constraints is that they obviously have to have a hole for it as well. I just got done. I have a whole new round. I got 70 more keychains I got to print off this week, and the kids are eagerly awaiting them. That's been a fantastic, fantastic project so far. Over to all the way on the right, that's an example of another very extensive project we've been doing with custom vinyl stickers. So utilizing the same program, Onshape, we delve more into utilizing it as a 2D CAD software rather than doing 3D modeling. And in that sense, we're able to take these 2D designs and bring them over to a vinyl cutter and cut out anything the student can create on a computer, which has just been mind-blowing for them and a lot of fun for me. So there's just a couple examples on that student's laptop, and that's honestly usually where they end up, which has been absolutely wonderful as word of mouth for the lab. So they'll put these stickers on their Chromebook, and then the Chromebook goes to another classroom, and the students are like, "Oh, where'd you get that sticker? It came from the CleanTech lab." That's been fantastic, really great. Moving over to the left, I have a couple other pictures. When the holiday season was upon us, a lot of the equipment in my lab is just used for making things. And the students were so interested in creating gifts for family members or friends. And through the sticker making process or the heat press, we were able to make dozens and dozens of different gifts that students were able to give out for the holidays, which was really, really awesome to see. They were so excited about it. Basically, all they had to do was bring in, a blank something. So you see there's a couple mugs that we did there. And I honestly, on a weekly basis, I have a student bring in a blank t-shirt, and we'll do a heat press graphic design on there, which has been really, really cool. So if we go to the next slide. I have also been piloting a new program. This was the past couple months. I've been trying out something called the Master Creator Program. So this picture that you're seeing here is actually the actual certificate that the students can gain at the end of the 6-week session that they have with me and become a quote unquote master creator. So the idea is they're going to work through all of these skills that I'm giving them with all of these different design softwares and all of the different equipment in the lab. And all of that has a proficiency level attached to it through an assessment. So the assessments are given out through a Google form, and all of the students take the assessments, and they obviously all do the projects. But the students who choose to kind of go above and beyond and not only complete all the projects, but get a 90% proficiency level on all of the assessments as well, are awarded the certificate at the end of the program. And a lot of them have been very excited about this. it's not only something that they can take away, and obviously I sign it for them and, they can showcase it elsewhere. It is also a way for them to access the lab a little bit more independently. So if they are somebody who earned the Master Creator, I'm confident that they're the type of student that's going to come in and work towards creating whatever project they're working on, like I said, in a more independent fashion. And that's really what I'm working towards. And I've been seeing that more and more. I've had a huge surge in popularity. I don't really have a lunch anymore. I have a dozen kids in my room who are making things, which is actually more fun. And a lot of them have gotten to a point where they're able to utilize the 3D printers and the vinyl cutters completely by themselves. And it's been really, really, really interesting and rewarding to go through that process with them. And then finally, on the last slide, I had a link to my website. I did create a website for the Clean Technology Lab for a couple different purposes, not only for the students who are in my lab, but also more importantly for the students who are interested in what's inside, like the equipment and the things that they can create and don't really necessarily have the time. So on that website, I showcase all of the different equipment, all of the different machines and information about that. But more importantly, I also have a tab on that website that is a link to all of the different tutorials I've created for all of the different software. And what this allows a student to do is, let's say that they're in a study hall, they're in a different part of the school, and they're really interested in learning about how to make something, let's say a 3D print in my room. They can go to my website, they open up the YouTube tutorial, and they can learn everything before they even step foot into the lab, which has also been really, really rewarding to see. So that's kind of what I have about the Clean Tech Lab. Thank you all for listening.
Thanks, Mr. Navratil. That's excellent. Next up is Mr. Karcher, Simulations Lab.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Mark Karcher, and I am a 27-year veteran of the math classroom, but a 1-year veteran, or less than 1-year veteran, of the Simulation Center classroom. So in a lot of ways, this has been like my first year of teaching again, and it's been a lot of work, but probably one of the most rewarding years of my career to this point. Going back to the axioms, one of the first axiom, and it's one that I've had posted on my classroom, even when I was at the high school, is that in this room, everyone is a teacher, and in this room, everyone is a student. And I tell the kids all the time, I say, guys, I'm learning this stuff too. And I think that really empowers the kids that, when I got the drones, I had never flown a drone before. So they were really excited to learn that alongside with me. So I had to do a lot of work over the summer. When Gary and Kathy pitched to me this idea of a simulation center, I was like, I don't even know what that is. And I said, well, there's got to be some math involved in there. So you can see from our first unit, we start off with data and probability simulations. And so we explore things like dice games. We explore probability with coin tossing, which a lot of these explorations starts with the first phase, which is the intuition piece of it. So for example, think about Yahtzee. A lot of us in the meeting tonight have probably played Yahtzee. And so, if you roll a set of dice, what's the odds that you're going to get 3 of a kind out of those 5 dice? What does your gut tell you? Is that a likely thing to happen or an unlikely thing to happen? So we begin to talk about probability and odds. And of course, that always leads to conversations about scratch-off tickets and going to the casino and going to the Saratoga race course. And, now they sort of have this deeper understanding of what are the odds of some things happening or not happening. And we talk also about simulations, probability simulations in weather forecasting. And we're working on getting one of our local weather forecasters to come in and do a talk with the kids as soon as COVID kind of eases a little bit. But our first unit is a favorite of mine because as a math teacher at heart, I love exploring data and probability simulations with the kids. And one big part of that unit is using spreadsheets. And spreadsheets have been a passion of mine for years. And showing the students some of the things that you could do with spreadsheets really, really blows them away, like conditional formatting, using logic statements, if then, conditional statements. And it's a really powerful tool that you can do a lot with analyzing data and displaying data. And, I tell the kids I can teach a whole 5-week course on spreadsheets, but we do enough to give them a little taste and pique their interest on some of the things we can do with spreadsheets. Then we get into our second unit, which is our unit on folding and building. This is a favorite unit of the kids because this introduces them to the concept that origami can be simulated. So I'm a big origami artist, and a couple of the people in the meeting here tonight know a little bit about that from me working with their kids. And I love taking a simple piece of paper and folding it in such a way to create this really dynamic product. Then what the students do is then they take that crease pattern and they build it in a geometry software called GeoGebra, and then export it into an origami simulator where it folds digitally. And so people might think, well, origami, that's not very innovative. Well, I would argue quite the opposite. Origami was used in the design of the James W. Webb telescope that was just launched back in December out into the deep regions of outer space. This telescope was compacted in this rocket cone, and when it got out to its final destination, it expanded and unfolded. And you can bet that they simulated that on probably some very sophisticated software. And they would probably, I would argue, did some modeling with just a simple piece of paper talking about how can they fold this. I've also shown the kids videos of a barricade that police use that collapses down using origami folds, but it's built of Kevlar. And this barricade collapses down into a very, very small compact case into the trunk of a police car, and they can pull it out, and using that origami modeling, they can do a quick deploy of the barricade. So we also explore 3D building using a program called Tinkercad, which I know they get some experience with in Mr. Navratil's Clean Tech Lab. We also look at some of the tools that Mrs. Aldis mentioned. We use the PolyPad to explore three-dimensional modeling, taking a series of polygons and how can you arrange those and simulate that fold into a three-dimensional solid in the PolyPad. Unit 3 is probably one of our most popular units. The kids love, love, love VR, as you can see in the image there in the top left corner. So the VR headsets that we use are not like the Oculus, which some people are familiar with. The units that we use require a cell phone. And I realize that not every student in the 6th grade has a cell phone. So we have the kids take turns, and sometimes I'll take my cell phone out and I'll put it in a headset and allow the kids to explore some virtual reality content that I've curated over the last few months in preparation for this course. Any chance that they have to put on these VR headsets and explore something like a 360 roller coaster, or to visit the Great Wall of China, or to walk across the Golden Gate Bridge using a VR headset, that's a pretty cool thing to watch these kids explore. I know when I was in 6th grade, there was no way that that was happening. I was looking at Encyclopedia Britannicas back then, and to see these 6th graders experiencing these types of things is really, really quite impressive. And then we also explore augmented reality, which we talk about the differences between VR and AR. And I tell the kids, like, you know, AR is like Snapchat filters, Pokemon Go. And when they watch NFL football games and they see the line of scrimmage on the field, that is superimposed on your TV screens. The players don't see that line of scrimmage on the field. We see it at home because it's been augmented onto that football field. Unit 4 is a little bit of coding. So here we got a nice little sort of synergy with the work that Mr. Ashline does in his lab. There's a lot of deep mathematics that you can explore within coding, and we code simulations with these small little microcomputers called microbits, and that's what's shown there in the lower right-hand corner image. You can't even see the microbits because they're so small, but the students there are holding these microbits, and they're coded using block-style coding, just like in Scratch, and they can code a variety of different programs. One program that's super popular is to get 2 little microbits communicate wirelessly with each other, and the kids say, Mr. K, can we go out in the hall and see how far away we can be to test it? So then I get my little trundle, my little rolling measuring wheel, and the kids say, okay, send a message. And they get it, and then they back up. And then they send a message, and they get it, and they back up. And they keep testing to see what the limits are and to see how far these little microbit computers can communicate with each other. So the microbits is a really cool little device. It's an inexpensive device. Inevitably, they ask me, can I buy these too? And I, of course, tell them where can you find it, of course, on Amazon. And but they're just a really cool little device that they can use to explore some of the crazy things that you can do with coding. And then speaking of crazy things, our 5th and final unit it's kind of like the rock star of the Simulation Center, and that is flying the drones. When I was talking with Kathy and Joe and Gary over the summer about what kinds of things might show up in a simulation center. Of course, when I think of simulations, I think of flight simulator. You know, I tell kids, you don't just ask a pilot to jump in this 747 and fly the plane. They do a lot of training on a simulator. So Kathy and I were talking about, man, wouldn't that be cool if we got a flight simulator? You know, we've got the Albany airport right here, the international airport. Wouldn't that be cool to get a flight simulator? So then I started doing some research and I said, what about drones? Because drones are actually used in so many different industries, from entertainment, from public safety, military, agriculture. There's lots of different applications of drones in our society, and it's growing as well. And the great thing about drones is we can get the drones in all of the kids' hands, whereas a flight simulator, maybe only 1 or 2 kids can use it at a time. So we've been working with a company called Drone Blocks. And the great thing about the Drone Blocks platform is it has a simulator where the kids can code a mission for their drone, simulate it first on their Chromebooks. Then when they are happy with the outcome of that mission, then they could fly the drones. And I remember Kathy and Joe came in here. We just got the drones just before Christmas time. And Kathy and Joe came in on one of the first days we ever flew the drones. And the reaction from the students, when these little, you know, they're not big, they're only like this big, but when these drones took off, the reaction from the kids, they're like, ah! And even Joe and Kathy were like, oh, and it was just so cool to see these kids taking these drones to flight. And of course, when the weather it is the way it is, we're just flying them indoors, but they're small enough and we have enough space within my room. My room's got some pretty high ceilings. So, you know, we push the furniture out of the way and we get the kids flying in the room. We talk about safety protocol. Kids are wearing safety glasses. The kids have their, you know, students with long hair have their hair tied back because we don't want to get those caught up in propellers. That would be a disaster. They talk about maintenance of the drones. We talk about when you get your drone, inspect it, check the propellers for cracks, check the propeller guards for any cracks or faults. And it's just been a really fascinating experience for me as their teacher to see these students, again, thinking back to what I did as a 6th grader and looking at what these kids are doing as 6th graders is really super amazing. I'm just blown away. I keep having to remind myself, like, these are 6th graders. And it's very impressive to see how they work together to problem solve, to fail, but still recover from those failures, and to learn from each other and to support from each other. So Gary, if you want to click on that little, looks like a YouTube icon. No, if you want to go back to, click on that little YouTube icon, looks like a little red TV.
Yep.
Yeah, click on that. There's a quick little video of a mission that a couple students flew. You'll see some students here flying the drones. This is just outside my classroom. And again, the kids have to program their mission first using the Chromebooks, and then they test it. They always have to modify because these drones are so lightweight. Even just the smallest little breeze can throw them off. Here they had to fly to the top of these towers.
Beautiful. Touchdown.
Yeah, it was really cool. And just a lot of fun to see these students. And of course, as people are walking by, it piques their interest. So I've had kids come in on my study hall. My period 8 classes, my period 8 study hall has almost become my period 8 class now, because now my students in my study hall want to use the microbits, or they want to do some origami simulations, or they want to do some things with the drones. And I also run a club after school on Wednesdays, which is, I joke, that's like my period 9 class, because my period 9 class, my club has become like a period 9 class where students are beginning to want to spend some time after school working with some of the things that we've been working with in the simulation center. So Gary, if you just want to go to the next slide, just to see some of the quotes. Every cycle of students, I ask the kids for feedback. You know, one of the questions I ask the kids is, what is something that you would want to tell a student before they come to the simulation center? And I'll let you all read these, and we'll share the slides out at some point. You can read through them, but it's just been fantastic working with these students. They impress the heck out of me every day. And I'm just extremely fortunate that North Colony has supported me and has supported these spaces and in turn has supported these students. So thank you so much, and I will hand it off to our next speaker.
Thanks, Mr. Karcher. Well done. Ms. Westbrook with the Makerspace.
Hi, I'm Katara Vincent Westbrook, and I am the teacher in the Makerspace. I feel like as I'm listening to all of the presentations that the elementary innovation labs are really doing a wonderful job of setting up for when students come to the 6th grade, the Makerspace, because many of the skills and strategies that I emphasize in the Makerspace, you're laying the groundwork in the elementary lab. So I really appreciate that. As you can see on the screen, these are some snapshots of pictures from my students and at work. Some things that you'll notice right away is that in all of the pictures, I think except one on the top right, you see students working together. And that's a huge, huge component in the Makerspace in the middle school, that students, have to work together to complete these challenges. And I always emphasize to them that, many minds make for light work, or many hands make for light work. And, so when I present the challenges to students, at first, they sometimes feel like, what? We can't do that. That's impossible. And I said, of course you can do that. And you will do that. You're going to do that together. And, throughout, 1 week or 2 weeks of, going through the challenges together, they start to rely on each other, and they start teaching each other different strategies and skills that they've learned in their classrooms, but also things that they know outside of school. And that's one of the most important things about the Makerspace, is that it combines what students are learning in their content areas, but with their passions, their interests, their skills that they already have. A lot of the tools that students need to do well and be successful in a space like this, they already have. I'm just really the person that facilitates bringing all of that out for them. And, so I basically create the conditions for invention, right? Rather than providing them with ready-made knowledge. And so the Makerspace is really a place where I present challenges to students or problems for them to solve. And I present those in a format that is within a scenario to give them a context. But it also gives them a person or a consumer or a group that they're solving this problem for. How is it going to help someone? How is it going to solve some problem for this particular group or audience that they're creating or making for? And that builds that empathy that's so necessary. And so the students, go through the engineering design process to complete every challenge. And they go through, being presented with the problem, brainstorming solutions together, selecting 1 or 2 of those solutions to try. And then they build their prototype, and they test and retest and iterate. And that's probably the process that the kids love the most, because that's when they get to make a mess. And it's a creative, wonderful mess. And there's a lot of movement and a lot of talking, a lot of testing. Students are recording on their Chromebooks, they're testing and demonstrations, they're making videos, they're taking pictures. They're walking around and looking at each other's designs and getting ideas. And I try to impress upon them that, looking at what someone else did is not cheating in this space. This is where we're learning from each other. Like, we're all designers, we're all engineers, and engineers work together. It's not they don't work in isolation. So if somebody's got a great idea, run with it. And maybe you can develop that and you can build upon that. So they're really learning how to collaborate and become a community of learners. And that's really wonderful to see in this space. And so one of the other things that's really important is that I impress upon them is to develop an innovator mindset. And the innovator mindsets are connected to the social emotional learning that we've been talking about, throughout this presentation. And it's basically a way that students can look at problems and challenges. And the innovator mindsets are boldness, curiosity, perseverance, empathy, and collaboration. And so at the beginning of each challenge and throughout each challenge, I'm continually impressing upon them, okay, that was bold thinking, let's be more curious about this. How can we figure out how this works? And I love your perseverance. Even though it may not work the first time, second time, 10th time, you're not giving up and you're learning from those mistakes. And that's really when learning happens, right? When we have a little bit of struggle, productive struggle. And then, making sure that they are developing empathy and collaboration and learning to listen to each other, learning how to compromise. These are skills that they're going to need for the rest of their lives, these soft skills that we're developing for them, which, harkens back to the habits of mind that are taught in the elementary innovation lab. So I love how everything is connected, from kindergarten through, elementary school into the middle school. And I think that, students are getting a really unique experience being in all of these labs. And I know that, as a teacher in the makerspace, I'm trying to develop in them independence, to help them to feel that they can do and make and do with what they know. So it's not just what do you remember, what can you memorize, but what can you do with that knowledge. And so all of my challenges are connected directly to what students are learning in their content areas. So I've actually, students have done over the course of, 4 cohorts, we've done 13 different challenges because my challenges change depending on what they're learning in the classroom. And so this is helping me, also being new to the building, to develop relationships with my colleagues because I'm getting to know them, and it's helping me to stay, on top of what's going on in the classroom, and all of the content area standards that I'm trying to bring into each lesson, I think are helping the students and teachers in their classrooms or in their content area. So it's like a team, we're all working together to teach the whole child. And that's really, what I'm trying to do is help students to apply what they're learning in their content areas, to construct their own meaning. And, through those experiential learning opportunities, really have a transdisciplinary, approach to teaching and learning. So I provide them with a problem or challenge, and that's at the foreground. And then all of the disciplines come out. They have to utilize what they're learning in math and science and social studies and ELA to actually solve the problem. And, that is the heart of STEAM education. And, I love what I do. This is like the very best thing. I go to work every day smiling and happy, and it's like playing, but the students don't realize how much they're getting from this experience. And I do have students also take or do self-reflections throughout and after each challenge, where they think about which innovator mindsets they used and how it helped them. So how are these soft skills that you need for the rest of your life, how are they helping you? And then which ones are you going to try to use for the next challenge? And I think I've seen such progress made, by students. Some are very quiet when they come in. They don't think they can draw or build, or that they're not creative. And then it's like, you just didn't exercise that muscle. Let's get it going. And so you see that students who might have been quiet and shy at the beginning, at the end of 5 weeks, are now leaders of their group. They're standing tall, they're standing in front of the room, they're explaining what they made, what they created, and they're an expert. And so that gives them confidence to do other things, to take more risks. And so, that's just the beauty of a space like this and all of our innovation spaces. And if you were to take a little look at the link at the bottom, Gary, could you click on that? That would actually take you to my page on the Shaker Middle School site. And you could see actually not all of the challenges we've done, but many of the challenges that we've done. I present students with slides that give them the resources they need. Like, for example, give them the background knowledge about the problem, the scenario. It also provides the criteria and the constraints. They don't like constraints, they don't like limitations, but I tell them that that's what makes it challenging. So they hate when I say they can't use glue. What? That's crazy. No, that's what makes you be creative. I'm forcing you to be creative. So but the criteria and the constraints are really important, and they learn to look to those, as guideposts, of what they can do, and to help expand, their skill set. But those slides are shared with them in Google Classroom, and they have those resources available to them to use for, as resources. So they're not constantly asking me questions. They can become more independent and find and utilize the resources I provide for them. And then if you were to take a look at, if Gary could go to the next slide, please. I also asked students to tell me, about their experience. I asked them what they liked about the experience, if there's anything that they want to change about the experience. And they always say the only thing they would change is that they could stay longer. And I'm like, yes, mission accomplished. Like, that's what I want. I want you to have loved the experience. But you'll notice that a lot of these responses fall into specific categories. Like, you could say that a lot of the students loved that they could work as a group. Like, those are the things that they love the most about the space, is they can work with other people. Others say that they love to be creative, and this is an opportunity for them to own imagination and things that were useful and helpful that actually would solve a problem. Other students said that they loved that they were able to make connections with what they were learning in their content area that helped them learn content better and have more deeper understanding because they were doing something with what they were learning, and it actually encouraged them to do more research. And other students just loved that they got to move around and they got to talk to each other and they got to express themselves creatively and to build. And, so all of the reasons that they loved the space is why I love teaching it. So I really do feel, very fortunate and blessed to be able to do this every day with them. And I think that all of our labs are so special and wonderful. And I feel, very fortunate to have this opportunity. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing about yourself, Mrs. Westbrook, and all the great work you're doing with these students. Mrs. Vasilakis in the Health, Wellness, and Mindfulness Lab.
Thank you, Mr. Chamberlain. Hello, everybody. I am Michelle, and I am the teacher and the student in the Health, Wellness, and Mindfulness innovation space. And what we do in this space is we take the components of our health, which is our physical health, which is our mental health, our thoughts, our emotions, and our feelings, and our social health. And we learn about what we can do to support those three parts of health by choosing wellness activities, habits, and structures and routines in our daily life. So really, our space is a place for planting the seeds for wellness. Students get to learn about choices. They get to learn about all the different options that are available for their wellness. So part of planting the seeds, and this is why I have the picture there, it just really resonated with me. We talk about our breath and our body anchor, and that's what we do when we do our mindful moments, that we can always return to our breath, and we can always return to our body to feel grounded and centered, and we practice skills to support that. We work on connection. We do small group as well as large group activities where the students get to share about the topic of the day. And then we do create wellness practices / a wellness plan as our takeaway once the space time has been completed. And then we also plant the seed of awareness, being aware of what does my body feel like? What thoughts do I have in my mind? How am I feeling today? So awareness is a major component of what we do in our wellness area. And then we have a gratitude practice and of course a mindful moment practice. And Gary, if you could click on topics discussed and practiced in class. I'm a very visual person, so I have 3 slides to keep me focused and on task. If you could click on slide number 1.
Yep. Sorry about that.
No worries.
Hold on. Okay.
Sure. Our space is a space where it is a place to support students on their life's journey. And these are the skills that we learn and that we discover together. And we do that by sharing these skills. We learn how to manage stress. We learn how to connect and calm the body. We learn various breathing techniques that could help to energize us when our bodies are feeling maybe sluggish or tired, and also techniques that can help us stay focused and techniques that can help calm our bodies. We identify, communicate, manage, and understand the purpose of strong emotions, because that is part of the human experience, is experiencing strong emotions. And although I didn't include it, we also do the opposite of what would be considered possibly a strong emotion, such as anger or anxiety. But we also support helpful emotions, such as empathy, compassion, and connection. We learn how to manage social pressures, and then we connect with our resources that are available to us. And that also supports self-empowerment, so that students feel empowered so they can meet their academic and personal wants and needs. And that supports empowering learners. And if you could go to the last slide. Beautiful. Each class has a plan, an outline. So we always start with a gratitude practice. And the reason we start with a gratitude practice is to bring awareness to what's going well in the world, so students can see that there is abundance and beauty and resources by each day stating 3 new things that they value, 3 new things that might bring them joy, and 3 things that have meaning to them in their life. So for example, this is a popular one. I'm grateful for my family. So that could be their first gratitude. But then the next day, if they still want to say family, they get to elaborate on that. Well, I'm thankful for my dad. And then maybe the third day, then they can talk about like why they are thankful for that person in their home. So it helps to expand their awareness to the abundance that is all around them. And then every session, we also have a mindful moment. And by definition, a mindful moment is paying attention on purpose without judgment. We're very kind and compassionate to ourselves when we try something new. So this mindful moment practice is part of what helps us to calm our body as we tune in to our breath anchor and our body anchor. And within each mindful moment, that's where the breath practices tie in. So each class, there is a breath practice, and sometimes the breath practice lasts for 2 classes just so kids can become familiar with the more, I call it complex because you're counting or labeling breath practices. And then they get to choose a breath practice of their choice, because choice is a big part of these innovation spaces. So they learn about the different choices, and then they can choose what they wish for their mindful moment practice. And then we have a topic of the day that gets introduced. And there's always a connection piece with that. It might be a large group connection or a small group connection with peers. Or we might have an activity, same idea, small group, and connecting with each other. So the innovation topics that we get to discover and share, what I started off with is, what can I do for my physical, my mental? And this is very important because we talk about what we're thinking, what we're feeling, and our emotions. And then our social health, which is our connection, because we can be surrounded by people and still feel very lonely, and vice versa. We can be alone, but still feel connected. So especially with COVID and, the COVID fatigue that we are all experiencing, our tolerance might have been very high before COVID. Maybe we could have worked on a scale of 1 to 5, we could have done a 4, but with COVID, most of us have gone down to like a 2, because there's just a lot going on with social connection. So we also talk about our social health. We talk about the brain. Specifically, we talk about the amygdala, which is the filter, which everything from our senses comes into our amygdala. And that's part of our limbic system along with the hippocampus. And that's where that fight, flight, and fear response comes from. And how do we access and calm our bodies so that we can go up to our thinking brain, our prefrontal cortex, to make decisions that support us to problem solve. And we also work on identifying and expressing feelings. And this is where we are right now in our process. And it's really wonderful because children and students, sometimes when you say, how are you? I'm good, I'm fine, I'm okay. We're learning about very specific emotion words, like I'm feeling energetic, I'm feeling excited, I'm feeling vulnerable, I'm feeling anxious. So we're getting the language that we need to be able to meet that skill of first being aware and identifying, but then also expressing feelings. And this is another area that I really, really am enjoying exploring with the students is positive self-talk, being aware of how we're talking to ourselves. And then are we listening to our coach or are we listening to our inner critic? So if we're listening to our inner critic, what language can we use to change it to our inner coach? And then learning about what resources are available to us, what people, what places, what situations of confidence, what ways to calm our body are always available to us to support our wellness. And again, calming our body. And I kind of made that my own little acronym. How to calm and love myself, or how to care and love myself. And it's really taken off. I wasn't sure if that word love in the acronym for calm would be uncomfortable for kids, but it's really neat to see how they are attaching to it and they're very comfortable with exploring that more. We work on self-compassion. Self-compassion, being kind to ourselves, giving ourselves permission to make mistakes, giving ourselves permission to apologize, to do it over again, and giving compassion not only to ourselves, but to other people as well. And in the end, the last couple of days, we tie everything together with our wellness plan. And once these slides do become public, there is a link to the Health, Wellness, and Mindfulness website. So you'll be able to see some of the really creative and beautiful and unique wellness plans that students have created for themselves. And I think we could go right to the feedback. So you could see some of the feedback that students have shared. And I think that's, yeah, thank you, Gary, you're great, thank you. The students overall really enjoyed the classes. The Google survey said they really enjoyed the mindful moments. They very much enjoyed the gratitudes, and they really enjoyed the connection time that they had with other students. This classroom doesn't work too much with technology. They open up their Chromebooks at the beginning for the Google survey and at the end for the Google survey. And students really seem to enjoy that ability to just be themselves. And that's one of the quotes that's in the middle, which I thought was really sweet. And that is what we do in our health, wellness, and mindfulness innovation space. So thank you.
Next one, Michelle.
Yes, this is the 8th graders. The 8th graders also enjoyed the health, wellness, and mindfulness space. They got a 3-day sampling of the space, and they were very much absorbing and asking questions and wanting to know more about really feelings and how to calm their body. That was the strong part that the 8th graders really liked as the takeaway, like, how can I calm myself down? So both the 8th graders and the 6th graders had some really nice feedback to share, as well as some feedback that taught me something. So again, I am a student, so I have learned from both 6th and 8th graders. So thank you.
Okay, Joe or Kathy?
Thank you so much to the entire team for presenting. I'll turn it over to Mr. Core in just a second, but I think You can see from all of them, all the axioms we talked about at the beginning. I think you can clearly see the 3 pillars. And I think that if you have been kind of following this since we did, the building project and getting it passed and having these innovation spaces be sort of the center, they really are changing opportunities for kids. And, one of the things I put in the chat that people at home may not be able to see, obviously, is we know, and we probably all remember from high school, what it was like to get to high school and have all kinds of electives and then get to college and pick classes that were interesting. And one of the things we really wanted to do was to start to expose our students at younger and younger grades to all the different kinds of ways that you can be good in school and you can excel and you can learn and you can find your passion, because that should always be our goal. Not just that they cross the stage and graduate, but they found something that they like to do, that they're good at, that makes sense to them. They find their people, they find their space. And I just want to thank the team again, as I said earlier, not just for tonight, but for really breathing life into these spaces. Our next steps will really be to look at our K-8 alignment now that we've gotten maybe 2/3, I guess, of the first year under our belts, and see how we can shore that up. And then what it looks like for transition to the high school. We're also interested in bringing in our community partners. We know we have a lot of people in our community who are willing to come in and share their expertise or their mentorship with our students. And we believe it can only grow from here, but it has been a very exciting first year. And I always say these innovation spaces have been the antidote to kind of everything we've been going through with COVID. It has been a long 2+ years of, some very challenging and dark times. And these spaces are about joy and creation and opportunity. And it really is a wonderful antidote for our kids. And from the quote we started with at the beginning, that we want to infuse this, that it's not just an innovation class, but it becomes part of the culture of the way we do school through this exploration and discovery, opens up a lot of really interesting possibilities. I'll turn it over to Mr. Core. Thank you, everyone.
Yes, thank you very much, Ms. Skeels, and great comments here in the chat room. Brett also had, how do the students react to working collaboratively after being social distanced for the last 2 years? I think our teachers would say that and I think Ms. Skeels just also said it too, it is the antidote to what they've been through as well. Any of our teachers have any comments about, how kids have experienced collaboration coming off COVID?
I've noticed that they've been very excited to do so.
Yeah.
Like they really want to be together and they really want to talk and socialize and they really want to work together. And they seem to really enjoy that aspect as one of the most favorite things, of the space.
Yeah, and that has been our observation too, and going into the spaces. Students are really thriving. It is what they need. They need to work together. They need to understand that very important skill and dynamic of being together. I would like to thank our team here, our innovation team, for their outstanding work in presenting this evening, but just their outstanding work in providing our kids with these incredible, unique, valuable, important experiences in learning. They are truly, they are the teachers, but they are the learners, and in their planning process and in their cooperative process, they very much model the innovative process. So it really and truly starts with them. At the end of this presentation, which will be posted, you can explore more by clicking on the presentation and going to the website to learn more about our innovation spaces. We welcome you in doing that. I want to thank you all for joining us here this evening. Do any of our PAC members have any specific questions for our team about innovation spaces before we leave?
Mr. Corr, can I just say something?
Yes, Mark.
I think I speak for all of us when I say we are extremely grateful for the support that the district has provided, not just from the funding, but just taking a real leap of faith with these spaces, because there really isn't anything like it at this scale out there. I know a number of us are on social media, and we talk to teachers around the world, and people are always asking me, like, what is the deal with these spaces? This is amazing. Like, I can't believe your school has this. And so thank you to the schools, thank you to the community, because we've gotten really great feedback from community members, and let's keep this going, because this is a really great thing for our students and for the other members of our community. And just a big thank you. I know it sounds kind of, but really, this has been, as for me personally, this has been a huge boost to say I can do this for a long time now, but just to know the kids have access to this is just really fantastic. So thank you.
And we're proud of you all. We're proud of our kids. Just makes me smile and warms my heart. That's all I can say. So thank you. And thank you to our community who have joined us here this evening. And we're very happy and proud to share this with you. So many thanks. Tomorrow at the end at 4 o'clock tomorrow, February break starts. So I wish all our students and our families a restful, relaxing, restorative time and a safe time. Thank you, Molly. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you all for the kind comments. We really appreciate them. Thank you, Bo. I really appreciate your thoughtful comments. Thank you all for doing that. And again, I wish you all the best. Have a great evening and happy February break. Take care. Thank you, people.
Thank you.